once we got our phones back, I saw the amount of hate that I was getting from her stands, and I expressed to Huda, hey, I really feel like it's important, especially if you consider yourself being very, very close to me, and you was close to Chelley at some point, to speak out to your fans and kind of address, because...
Personally, I feel this reunion was needed because there were a lot of things that needed to be addressed, although there are people that didn't give the answers that were expected of them and answered questions that they had in their heads. Huda. And then Andy was needed. I have a feeling that Peacock brought in Andy because Ariana was afraid to be confrontational, and so they brought in Andy to sort of ask the questions that needed to be asked, and Ariana just got to sort of ask the softball questions. Do I think Huda took accountability? No. Do I think she understands the word accountability? No. Just as much as I don't believe she understands the word I love you, the meaning of those two words she doesn't understand. Because every time she was faced with the situation she couldn't sort of squeeze herself out of, the first or the go-to was I love you. And I'm also happy that they got to show the full clip of the heart rate challenge, and hopefully the viewers can apologize to Chelley and Olandria, because at the end of the day, this girl was in the wrong and we all can see that. Anyway, hey there, thanks for stopping by. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, click the like button, turn on the notification bell for when I upload new videos, and definitely leave a comment. In this episode, I'll be reviewing Love Island USA Season 7, Episode 36. Oh, sorry, 37, The Reunion. I know my review is late, but yesterday was crazy because I'm getting ready to go back to work, so I needed to run a couple of errands. Anyway, so we have the reunion for Love Island. What do I think? I feel like we're meeting a couple of representatives in this episode, especially with Huda. Anyway, we get a trailer of the islanders' time in the villa, how their journeys came to be, or how they came to be in the couples that they're in, and it was really cute to see. Some of it was a bit messy, but hey, it is what it is. You have Brian and Amaya. They are asked, Amaya and Brian, how are you going? How are you commuting? How are you managing the long distance? Brian says it's a 35-minute flight and a 3-hour drive, and they've been doing great. They are then asked about cheating rumors, and Brian said it was a misjudgment on his part. And it's like, what misjudgment are we talking about? What exactly did he do that made, him be called out for cheating? I sadly don't know the incident. I never looked it up. As I've said, I try not to follow these people after the show because then you get to see the real them, and at times you don't like what you see, so I avoid that. Chris did speak up and say he was with Brian on the night, but he didn't say it. And it's like, Chris is Brian's friend. He's never going to call out Brian unless it's private, so I don't think he would want to air him out because you'd know that the fans would lash out at him. Pepe and Iris, they say they're exclusive. They're asked, are you now boyfriend and girlfriend? They say not at the moment because our opinions or our views on being boyfriend and girlfriend are different. She wants them to date for a bit before he asks her to be his girlfriend. And I really don't know when it comes to these two. I think they like one another, but then when you go on social media, they've unfollowed each other, which leads me to believe that something must have happened either between the time of filming or they were just playing up this relationship. Iris is then asked about her scandal with the TMZ footage of her sort of hugging TJ. And she says, well, she wanted to see TJ face to face and tell him that her connection with him was genuine, it was real. And so she wanted to make sure that she got closure. Pepe's asked about him and Hannah, and he said he had a conversation with her and he just wanted to make sure she's good. So they give us the impression that that love square, everyone is at peace and they've settled whatever issues they had. And it's like, well, if that's what you want us to believe, it is what it is. We then get to Huda and Chris. And the fact that they have Amaya and Brian sitting in between them says a lot. It really says a lot. And I agree with it. Given the footage that we saw in the bed, it was played out again. And also the things that Huda was saying on her interviews, I understand why Chris wants distance from her, because she's very disrespectful. She's very self-centered, and she's sort of judgmental, but is not willing to take accountability or apologize when she's wrong. She always covers it up with I love you. Anyway, they're asked, how are the two of you? She says she's fine. He says it's weird. And it is weird. Because how do you go on an interview and say, oh, it's not like, he tried to enter me. It's not that I couldn't handle it. I could have handled it. And it's like, that is all not necessary. It's like your abuser going on TV and saying some of the most disrespectful things. So for her, it comes out that apparently 2 days before this reunion, she called him. I feel like Huda wanted everyone to be in her best books and not for everyone to call her out, because Andy had already said that she has a lot to answer for. And I think her calling out Chris, or calling Chris, was trying to be in his good books. If you're going to go on a podcast or on TV and disrespect me, go on a podcast, go on TV and redeem me and apologize for whatever you said. There's no need for us to do it in private. Chris is asked, how does your mom feel about this, how your relationship with Huda ended? And he said, my mom is happy with how things played out. I don't think his family liked Huda from the jump. After seeing how she called Jeremiah out of his name, irregardless of whether Jeremiah was right or wrong. So I think they were willing to tolerate her, but the way she treated him and seeing her count down in bed, I feel like any mother would be happy that he didn't sort of step out of character and do anything that would get him in trouble. But they're also happy that she's in his rearview mirror. I would be happy as well. So Huda is asked, we've seen you out and about. What's going on? Are you dating? And she said, well, I can't say anything. And it's like, why can't you say anything? And she said, well, Netflix won't allow me to say anything. And it's like, Netflix is out here putting, don't add me, I don't know. And exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. And it's like, call her out. She is trying to be mysterious. Sadly for Huda, the guy she's dating is not the best. We all know Lewis. I've seen Lewis on Too Hot to Handle. So the idea that she thinks this is a great idea, she should have come out of the villa, done a lot of work on herself before deciding to enter into a commitment or any sort of entanglement with anyone else. And then finally, we get to Olandria. Olandria, they're the cutest ever. They are asked, we have to speak about Sierra because she's not been invited to attend, but we want to find out if the two of you have spoken to her. So an Instagram post was read out and Nick's answered it. I'm happy he answered it because he said at the end of the day, when I left the villa, I needed time to process. And then I was going to probably have a conversation with her. But then she went to Greece and started posting these silly videos whereby she was saying, you thought it was serious, but he's dating your friend. And I'm happy he called her out for that because it's unacceptable. It makes it feel like Olandria stole her guy. Olandria didn't steal her man. That was never her man. She did everything within her power to win this man, including taking off her knickers, and that still didn't capture him. And I have a feeling every time you were saying I only lasted 25 minutes, 30 minutes, I feel like he was just doing it just because, but he didn't want to be heard by the person that he was really trying to explore. They asked, so do you have a label on your relationship? They both said no, because there's a lot of pressure for us to label it. Some people are saying they want her married and pregnant. And so we're going to do things at our own pace. And good for them, because you do not want to follow the lead from everybody, because the moment you deviate from that lead, you're in trouble. So the idea that they're moving at their own pace, I love that. They say that, they're on this quest to sort of fulfill Olandria's bucket list. We know she wanted to go to Greece, so they went to Greece. She did some modeling there. And it's really cute. You have people like Chris going, yes. And I think this is because a lot of the guys knew this guy really liked Olandria. And yet he was willing to sort of take a seat back and wait for his friend who he thought was interested in the girl. And when the friend it didn't pan out, he then stepped up and was the man. They asked about fans making shady remarks and stuff, and they said, well, that's our second fan base. Olandria Hive is a big hive, and those haters, we don't consider them as haters, we just consider them as our second fan base. And it's like, yeah, they are your second fan base. If you're posting and they're commenting on everything you post, that shows they're following you and they're interested in whatever's going on with you. So they bring out Ace and Chelley with Taylor and Clark. And they have conversations with the two new couples. Taylor and Clark are asked, how are things going? They say, we're happy. I know there was a lot of controversy with people saying they don't like the way sort of Taylor treats Clark, in the sense that he was always pushing ahead or making inappropriate comments. I think it's lack of emotional intelligence and lack of maturity on Taylor's part, because even when he came out, he's just very giddy and very happy-go-lucky. He was jumping around, greeting the guys and stuff. So I really don't know whether that says that's enough indication. I think he really likes her, otherwise he wouldn't have brought her to meet his family. She said she was able to ride a horse bareback and she was very impressed with herself. And she says she's been down to meet his family a couple of times, which shows that they're really doing very well. You have them sort of panning out to Olandria and it's like, don't be messy. Taylor's asked, were you really conflicted about the Olandria situation with Clark, or were you just saying that? And he said he really was conflicted up until he chose Clark. I don't think so. I think he grew a friendship. I think he grew a loyalty to Olandria, but I would never say he had any romantic attraction towards her. I always to what he said on day one, when he said he didn't feel her. Olandria said, she was disappointed watching him say he didn't have any romantic feelings towards her because she thought he was respecting her boundaries when she said she's a slow burner, when in actual fact he was doing that because he didn't have any attraction to her. I was always side-eyeing Taylor because I always had a feeling that it seems more like Nick and Ace were sort of encouraging him to do things for Olandria, not because he was doing it out of the bottom of his heart, even the little dates he was setting up. Chelley and Asa asked, how do you feel sort of being at the bottom of the viewers' sort of rankings? And they say, well, we think the viewers didn't get it right. This show was supposed to be about finding love, and Asa says it was more about popularity, people going for who they really liked. And it's like, that also plays a part in it. Yes, it's about love, but at the end of the day, you have to be likable. It doesn't matter how hopelessly in love you are with your partner, but if the viewers cannot connect with your connection, then you've lost them. Ace should never have messed around and gone to Amaya. Had he gone straight to Chelley, stayed with Chelley, then the viewers would have been on his side. But the fact that he tried to play games and sort of couple up with Amaya and then played in Amaya's face, that's the reason why they were where they are. But lack of accountability is something else. You have Ace and... Well, Ace is asked that, the viewers have been sort of dissecting that you have been commenting in Chelley's post since July of 2022. Ace says, no, they've only known each other for a year. The fact that they were sort of side-eyeing each other and were not very transparent, it tells me that they know themselves, that they knew each other a lot longer than they're making out. Yes, they might not have been romantically inclined, but they must have chatted for a bit. And not that, up until 2022, I don't think so. I really don't. But I also, at the same time, I don't believe it was a one-off conversation that they had in New York and that was it. In 2022, he would have been about 18, 19, so that would have been too young for Chelley, in my opinion. But that's just me looking at it from the outside. You then have, them sort of saying fans said you sort of coordinated the storyline that you both come on the show, fall in love and blah, blah, blah. The problem with this story is, yes, they're saying we would have needed to coordinate our answers, would have whatever. We saw Love Island UK, where Harry's ex was brought in. So production could have brought them both in just to be messy, knowing that they know one another. It seems prior to moving into the villa, Chelley had known of Andriana, I always struggle with her name, and Amaya. So whether they knew each other just from liking each other and coming across each other on the FYP, or whether they had previous connections, I don't know. So I can't speak to that relationship of whether that's it or not. They're asked, are you still exclusive? They say, yes, we are exclusive. We're not yet boyfriend and girlfriend. Ace says he has a plan to sort of come up, a plan that is going to sort of get in motion of how he's going to ask her to be his girlfriend, and she's going to be his one and only girlfriend. Do I think so? No. I don't think so. I think Ace is too pompous, and with time he will grate on your nerves. For me personally, I think he's too pompous and he's too full of himself, and he needs to be humbled a bit, or he needs to step down a couple of notches. Austin is asked, how are you doing? He says, fine. He's asked, has your body count gone up? He said, no, it's actually gone down because I've forgotten a couple of the people, and it's like, hey, it is what it is. We then get to Coco. Coco is asked, you were on a podcast and you said some of the girls were standoffish. I said, yes, I did. I said Olandria was standoffish because, she wasn't sort of talking to us. And it's like, please be for real. You girls came in as Casa girls. One of you is exploring a connection with her partner. What friendship would she be citing with any one of you outside of being fake to try and get the gist or the lowdown on Clark? Make that make sense? And I'm happy that Olandria said, I'm not fake. I'm not going to fake a friendship. And for Coco to go after Olandria doesn't make sense. She could have easily gone after Chelley, but she knew people would call her out and say she was doing that because she didn't get to win Ace. She was called out for being messy. She said, I never meant to do that. They then asked about the live when she wanted to say hi to Olandria, and Olandria said, I wasn't with it because you can't be saying things about me. And Coco said, oh, but I did send you a DM, and Olandria said, I saw it, but I'm not going to comment on it because if you're going to talk about me in public, I'm going to to also talk about you in public. And that's how we were going to leave it. Because you can't say nasty things about me for the rest of the world to see and then come in private and say, oh, actually, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I think I remember coming across the video for the girl who did the interview with Coco, where she was talking about Olandria, saying, Coco had been asking them that please take these videos down, please take this video down. And it's like, why would they take it down? That's how they earn their capital. So it is what it is. Olandria then says, it's really sad that people in the villa, we really got along very well. Coco could have easily come out and spoken highly of me and said, she's not obsessed with this man, but no, she's decided to play into that narrative. And it seems she's not the only one who's played into that narrative. A lot of people have done it. You then see Huda sort of shaking her head. I think she was trying to say, please don't bring me up, please don't bring me up. And so Andy asks, who are the other people? And they sort of diverted. Oh no, they were basically saying, who are they? Sort of like name them and shame them. You had Vanna be called out. Vanna said no, she did say something, but then she went on her live and she sort of really addressed it because, podcasts or interviewers will never show the real good things. They'll always show the bad things. And it's like, well, why say the bad things then? Why would you say it? Unless you want the clout and you want the attention. Huda's, you then have Olandria say, Huda said she was bullied, but I don't think she was bullied. Personally, I don't feel Huda was bullied. I feel she was isolated and she was called out for her bad behavior, but lack of accountability sort of takes away her ability to notice what she's done wrong, and instead she's always playing the victim in any given situation, and that's how I feel it went. So I love that Andy said, no, we're not going to mix this with everything else. We're going to speak about it separately. It's like, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Zach and Amaya, what do I think before I say anything? I love Zach. I always loved Zach. And I feel like Zach wasn't given the credit he deserved because the Amaya was only in the villa to stay up until the very end because of Zach. Because Zach left Olandria to go for her. All the other guys ignored her. And she forgets about all that. He apologized to her for his behavior on the Stand Your Ground business. He said, I'm happy that she's happy. And then he was asked, did you make an effort with Amaya when you realized she was the America's favorite? Someone like Amaya is disappointing for me. This is why I don't follow people once they leave the show. Because production added that person into a certain way that viewers can love her. And yet once they leave the villa, you start to see them for who they are. And sadly, this is what is going to happen to Amaya because the veil is going to come off and people are really going to see her for who she is. Because I didn't get why she was going so hard at this man saying, oh yes, you didn't want to talk to me until you realized that I was the fan's favorite. And then you started doing, and it's like, this man wasn't as horrible to you as Ace or as what's his name, Austin, and yet you're giving him more smoke than you're giving Austin and Ace. Make that make sense? That part I don't understand. I don't know what she expected, whether she was trying to get brownie points or whether she was upset because apparently Zach had said Brian was only coupled up with Amaya because of the money, and that's the truth. Because at the moment they're not following each other. Brian has more pictures of Amaya on his Instagram than Amaya has. I don't think Amaya has anything outside of her winning and something else. So he told the truth. And I love that after they tried to sort of corner him and say whatever nonsense they wanted, he then said, at the end of the day, as long as the two of you are happy, that's it. I hope you last a long time, which they haven't. Production were really not playing with the receipts in this episode because they were making sure that people were held to account. Anyway, we then watched the clip of Pepe sort of reading the stand on business card. And he's asked, how did you feel with realizing what happened, that, Huda was behind that card? Because we also get to see Huda confessing to Chris in bed that, I'm the one who wrote the card. And Grayson says she feels some type of way. I was upset that Huda wasn't honest because every time I asked the girls were there for me and they were saying, no, he really likes you, things are going great. And so to find out that this is what they thought of me behind my back wasn't good. And it wasn't good. It seriously wasn't, because Huda has this thing whereby everything needs to be okay for her. She doesn't care what happens to everybody else. She can rain on everybody else's parade, but let no one try to even say anything or do anything that might be seen as otherwise. Because when the clip was being shown, you could see her sort of looking around and looking for someone to back her up. For her to say, I really love you, you're an amazing woman, you're really supportive of me. If she was supportive of you, and if she's an amazing woman, why did you feel the need to air her out? Because as Pepe said, that was more targeted at Grayson than it was at him. And I said this before, and I'll say this again. Huda really liked Pepe. After she broke up with Jeremiah, she expected to couple up with Pepe. And Pepe didn't show her any interest. And so she showed him interest, although Hannah was her friend and Hannah was trying to support her during the Jeremiah fallout. They went to Casa. When she came back from Casa, I think she expected him to be single. So coming back and finding him with Grayson and finding him happy is something that she didn't expect. And this is why she decided to sort of embarrass, in my opinion, Grayson. Grayson on her part was upset with Pepe because she felt like, he should have been honest with her and told her that, I really wasn't feeling you like that. And so for him to say, I tried to tell you as soon as I could, I don't know. It's a bit complicated in the sense that you have a partner, your partner is sent out, and then you're expected to move on to the next person. And because of the fast pace of Love Island, it can be a bit tricky for people to sort of process their emotions and see where they are. For Huda to say, I love you, somebody needs to teach Huda what the meaning of love is, please. And I'm going to leave it on that. Ace is then asked, how did you feel about Chelley exploring a connection with Chris in Casa? He said, that's a loaded question. Shelley's asked the same. She says it's a loaded question. People mastered the art of being evasive with their answers and not giving the answer for the question that they're being asked and instead answering what they wanted to answer. Chelley says, this was the purpose of being in the villa and we're going to explore connections. If my connection with Chris was stronger than my connection with Ace, then fine. If not, then it is what it is. So for them to then bring up the Chelley and Huda's situation, this is what I'm going to say. I feel like people sort of missed what was going on here because by Huda bringing back Chris, she made the decision for Chelley. Chelley didn't get to make a decision of who she wanted. Yes, now Chelley can say that, Ace was my number one, but that was a decision that was taken out of her hands. And I wish she had said it that way, but she can't because she's in a couple with somebody else. Yes, Huda said, I'm bringing him for the two of us. But when they got back to the villa, she became very comparative. She was comparing, oh, Chris, you're doing this for Chelley and you're doing this for me. You're giving me one pancake, you gave her two pancakes, you're giving me this. And so how do you bring someone for somebody else if you're going to do that? On my part, Huda did not have any interest in Chris until her guy, what was his name, CT or CJ, dumped her. And then she realized that, oh, actually Chris is here and Shelley's got a connection with him, so I'm going to make the decision for her. That's the impression that I get, because she said, even if you had told me no, I'd still have brought him. And it's like, how would you bring someone if I'm telling you no? And what makes you feel like I want to share that person? What if I want to choose him as my person? Because Chris, I think this provided clarity for him to realize that he was used like a pawn in that sort of equation. I think he expected that Chelley had dumped him and that's why Huda brought him back. But actually, Huda must have gone to production and said to production, I don't have a connection, I need a connection to go back, so I have to choose someone, so I'm choosing Chris. And that's how it was left, because the other guy wouldn't put up with the crap. Chris is then asked, how do you feel about Huda and her comments that she's made about on the podcast? He said he didn't like it and he felt it was inappropriate and it was insensitive. Hey, they then addressed the unfinished business between TJ, Iris, Pepe, and Hannah. Both parties said, all we needed was sort of a closure on that situation, because Iris was told, you were seen on TMZ with TJ. She said, well, I needed to have a face-to-face conversation with him. Hannah says she's had a face-to-face with Pepe and they have ironed out their differences and they're happy and they're moving on, and she feels that Iris deserves the connection she has with Pepe. And it's like, oh, we're really being respectful, aren't we? And then Adrina and Brian, I love that she called him out because he wanted to come across as the angel. So for her to call him out and say, why did you stand behind Jaden? I don't get it. People make it seem like, this guy went from Adrina and straight to Amaya. No, he didn't. He went to Jaden, and then when Jaden was sort of pulled out, the rug was pulled out from under her, that's when he went to Amaya. So Amaya was a backup plan. So for him to call out Zach K, you can tell I love Zach K, and say, oh, you said that I only used Amaya for the win. Yes, you did. Because had Jaden still been in the villa, you'd never have looked sideways at Amaya. You only looked at Amaya when you realized that was your ticket to stay in the villa. Let us be honest. You pursued her because she was popular, and Zach K might have pursued her because she was popular, but hey, it is what it is. And Brenna, she really called him out and said our connection was physical attraction. Yes, our conversations were boring. Yes, we also them have sex on day one, so I don't know. We then addressed the situation, the Chelley, Pepe, and Hannah situation, the brutal dumping. First, we got to see her sort of recouple with Chelley, how that came about to be, and then, her be dumped as well. I love that Chelley was able to hold Amaya's feet to the fire. That when you were going through a crisis and you needed help, I was your man. But when people started voting for me, I'm not saying you could have saved me on your own, but at the end of the day, you stood up to vote for me to go home when I was the person that was sort of backing with you. And for Amaya, the faces that she was making, her veil is slipping off. Her veil, she was sold as this American sweetheart, this girl who's really, flows with the wind and really loves everybody. Well, this is not what her facial expressions were saying during the, Chelley's conversation. Because she was sort of, I think, this is what I think. I think people didn't expect to be aired out. And when they were being aired out, they didn't know how to process that. And the same was for Amaya. She said, well, I had a conversation with Hannah and I just went off that. No, you didn't. Because Hannah was devastated. She was crying. So make it make sense. I wish Hannah had spoken up, and I'm sad that Hannah didn't speak up and sort of call her out. Maybe she didn't want to be messy, but Amaya was messy for that vote, and she deserves to be called out because she even tried to explore a connection. So part of me believes she was upset that he wouldn't explore a romantic connection with her, so she decided to stand up for him and send him home. Hannah and Chelley asked, is there going to be a future? They said no, there's no future here. We're done. We're moving on. And so it is what it is. We also saw the girls, how they came about to vote for, Hannah to go home. This is the same playbook, in my opinion, that they used on everybody. And I think this was Ace and Shelley's doing because everybody else was saying, let's keep Hannah because she's got a great connection with Pepe. And for Chelley to say, no, she does. Yeah, she does. But why is it every time she connects with someone, they've got a great connection? And it's like, well, maybe she's just that likable. Maybe she is. And there's no need for you to punish her. Iris could have easily gone home. Even Amaya could have gone home at the time because they didn't have a connection. Them not finding a connection in the villa doesn't mean they're not going to find a connection in the real world. I have a feeling that Ace and Chelley were set on getting rid of the competition, and sadly, Hannah was the competition, and this is why they sent her home. Personally, I don't understand where we needed to see Bella. Anyway, she says she wasn't expecting the love when she came out of the villa. She's happy for Olandria. She really likes them together. Because I remember right at the very start, her only connection was Nick. And she was trying to play hard to get. And sadly, that didn't win her favors because this wasn't the environment for her. Maybe she should have waited a couple of years and gone on Love is Blind. That would have been more up her speed. Otherwise, there was no need for her to be here. She's asked about Huda. She says she's friends with Huda, and I am going to start the clock on that because it will only last as long as Huda doesn't feel like Bella's overshadowing her. The moment Bella becomes more popular than her or becomes more famous than her, then that's out the window. So I can't wait for that. Jeremiah, we then got to see clips of Pancake Gate, and we got to see the drama that came after it. I'm here for Chelley saying if that was me, I would have broken up with her because you're a braver man than me. I can't be going all through that, just because of the pancakes. And everyone knows Huda was wrong. She knows she was wrong. For her to say, I've changed, I've grown, I'm a better version of myself. Okay, if that's what you want to say. Jeremiah came with the facts and he cornered her and he said, you said I was love bombing you, but you are the one that was going to the girls and twisting things around and telling girls things that I hadn't actually said. For example, he told her, we'd need to date for a bit and then maybe live in the same city together before we moved in. She went for the date. We all remember that date at the theme park. And from there, she came and told him that the girls that, he said he wants to move in with me. So she had this idea of who or what she wanted from this relationship, not based in facts, but based in her imagination and imaginary world. So I'm happy that it was all called out. Ace was asked, how could you say I was love bombing? And he said, well, I was listening to what people were saying, and that was what I was using as fact. And Ace is a bit too stubborn at times when he's wrong. He can be a bit wrong and too stubborn and still won't back down. I don't know whether it's because he's always felt intimidated and has always had to prove himself. And this is why he's constantly fighting this battle of wanting everybody to think that he is the man when he isn't. I feel like he should have apologized to Jeremiah and just told him, I'm sorry, this is not where we were. And I shouldn't have said what I said. And that's it. You had Taylor say, Jeremiah was very possessive over Adriana. He wouldn't allow Nick or Pepe to explore her. And Jeremiah said, that was a joke. I said that in jest. I said that as a joke. I didn't mean it. I was just saying I'm going to spend the whole day chatting with her. That way you guys can't talk to her. But I never said that in a sort of territorial way. And it's really, I think, lack of understanding or miscommunication that played a major part in sort of that situation. I'm happy that we got to see the dumping, and Nick stood on business and said, I wanted Austin sent home. I didn't want Jeremiah sent home. So I'm happy that the clip actually backed him up, because Jeremiah at one point was very bitter, saying Nick and I knew each other before we entered the villa, so the idea that he would not stand up for me doesn't make sense. And I'm happy that he was able to say this puts a light on this situation and allows me to see Nick in a different light, and I want to apologize. So I'm happy that that was shown and they were able to sort of grow from that. Ace was called out for being a ringleader and for his diss track on Jeremiah. He said, I was more vocal than everybody else. Chelley said that you never let another man tell him what to do. And I don't think Nick and Taylor are technically allowed, Ace to tell them what to do, but I think they wanted someone who would save them in the event of a vote. And so this is why they try to be in the best of books as possible. At one point, Ace had to acknowledge that, maybe his opinion of Jeremiah was wrong, and it was wrong. It really was wrong. Ace was out. Do you have anything else you want to address? He called out Amaya because apparently she made a shady TikTok, and then she went and she apologized in private. And Amaya was thinking that was the end of it. So Ace, I'm happy that he said, you did this in public. You can't come to me in private and apologize. And this needs to be done everywhere, in my opinion. If people are going to go out there and say things about you that live in the ether, then they need to be there and apologize as well in the ether. So those two things can balance each other out. For Amaya to say I was trying to get my team to sort of take it down. Seriously, people will copy this and will continue to clip it and share it and clip it and share it. So even if it's taken down, unless they take down everybody and shut down social media, it's still going to be out there. Jeremiah and Bella were asked what's going on with the two of you. They said we're just besties. There's nothing romantic there, because they were being called out that you took pictures in the same house, same room, whatever. And it's like, Bella said she wants to be focused on herself. So I feel like this is why she was shutting everything else down. We then got to see Hurricane Huda. And the clips were really terrible, as far as I'm concerned. It was terrible. She said, she would have handled things differently. She's had time to reflect. She's grown. And I'm happy Andy called her out that it's taken you, within a month, you've learned a lot of things and you've grown. No, she hasn't. She hasn't done enough reflection. She actually needs to go to therapy, as far as I'm concerned. They show a clip of Chelley talking to Sierra. Olandria didn't say anything. She just minded her business. And these girls were saying, we don't like the way she's treated Iris. And so for her to do that, we didn't appreciate that. So for Amaya to turn around and say that was mean, it's like, girl, 2 minutes ago, they were showing Huda yelling at you, yelling at Iris, yelling at anyone who came within 6 feet of Jeremiah, and you had no comment for that. And suddenly, because the girls are talking in defense of somebody else, that was mean. Make that make sense? Amaya, I think she wants to be seen to be on the same side as her Latina people, not realizing that this is not a good look for her. Always be on the right side of the truth. Always be on the right side of what is right, irregardless of who the people are. And sadly for Amaya, she lost this test. And hey, it is what it is. Huda was then called out because she said she had been bullied. And she said, I watched clips and I felt bullied. And it's like, how do you mean you felt bullied? How do you mean you felt bullied by watching clips? Bullied, you'd have felt it while it was taking place. You wouldn't have needed to watch clips in order for you to feel bullied. So for her to say that I didn't get it, and turns out apparently Olandria actually showed her the picture of George Floyd and was begging her, Huda, can you please put out something to your fans to quench this fire? Because this is affecting me mentally. Huda apparently told her that she was going to do it and she didn't do it. Her excuse initially was that I had a lot of things going on with me, and then when she realized that wasn't working, she said people were being being racist towards her. And it's like, you can't balance it out. If people were being racist towards you, was it because of Chelley and Olandria, or was it because of something else, or was it because of your hurricane situations? Which is it? And so I'm sad that Huda lacks accountability. She lacks self-awareness. She lacks self-reflection. And she lacks the ability to apologize, because every time she tells someone, I love you, that's manipulation 101. Manipulation 101. So for her not to be able to do that, I don't get it. For her to say, I said no one should be bullied. No, your friend, your best friend in the villa, someone who was with you during some of your trying times, even if you had an issue with Chelley because she called out Sierra and Chelley, you should have still backed your girl Olandria, because Olandria was there for you. She was there during your trying times. So for you not to feel the need to justify that with an answer, personally, I still don't understand. I still find it very difficult. The girls were questioning, but you said you wanted us to meet your daughter. You said we're the best of friends. You said we're going to travel together. And for you to then turn around and say, no, actually, the thing is, you people bullied me. It doesn't make sense. Math is not mathing, and it really isn't. We then saw the heart rate challenge. That was too much. That was too much. For her to lick Ace all over, including his manhood, doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't make sense. Oh, I took it too far. What do you think, Sherlock Holmes? What do you think? What exactly do you think? Because at the end of the day, you should have known. Because you had Andy ask her, if Chelley had done the same thing to Jeremiah, how would you have felt? Well, she was dancing and kissing Chris, but I didn't say anything. That is not the question. If that were Jeremiah, how would you have felt? When you kicked off when Iris tried to kiss him, when you kicked off when Amaya kissed him, and yet Chelley is wrong for complaining that, you licked his manhood. For Iris to say, well, we should have had more defined boundaries. What more boundaries did you need? Kudos to Chelley to say, I shouldn't have needed to tell someone that please don't kiss my man on the privates that I really have a strong connection with. I felt it was jealousy. I'm going to say it. I didn't want to say it, but I feel like it was jealousy. I feel like Huda came into the villa expecting to be the top dog, and she had seen the previous season and how Leah aligning herself with Serena and what's her name, Janea, had sort of benefited her. And I think this is what Huda expected. I think she expected Chelley and Olandria to sort of play her minions, and when they outshone her, this is where the problems came about to be. When they left the villa in couples and she left single, this was where the issue is. You can't convince me otherwise. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Click the link in my video to watch my review from episode 36. Bye guys.